On the 10th of July 2017, the Iraqi government declared Mosul liberated after 9 months of battle in which they were backed by US-led coalition and Kurdish forces. ISIS had occupied Mosul for 3 years. The death toll is still highly uncertain, ranging from 9,000 to 11,000. There are still almost 2 million internally displaced people today across Iraq, but nearly 4 million have already returned. It feels like the war has just finished in Mosul. 1 year after ISIS fell, even the rubble is still there, hiding bodies and unexploded munitions. There are 8 million tons of explosives in the debris, according to the United Nations. No more than 30 square kilometers of the Mosul district have been cleared. In spite of this, over 800,000 residents have returned. Others have never left.
I was about to open the door with my children when an explosion hit us. I lost consciousness. My daughter died at the hospital and my son on the way.
The children were a 3-year-old boy and an 11-year-old girl. Another daughter, Nada, survived but lost her leg, as did her father, who worked as a taxi driver. Now his taxi lies destroyed in the courtyard, and his hopes of rebuilding a livelihood depend on him getting back his self-sufficiency. Adil and Nada are among the more than 7,000 patients who, since 2014, have received rehabilitation sessions from Handicap International. The NGO, financed by the EU's Humanitarian Aid Department, helped them prepare to receive a prosthetic limb. Due to a reaction to it, they both require extra rehab sessions.
We have the fracture, we have amputee, we have a burn, and some spinal cord injury because of the shelling. We have different kind of the type of the patient. We have 2 kind of follow-up for the patient, before fitting and after fitting. After fitting, we are doing the follow-up for the patients for 3 times to be sure that the device is positive or negative.
With the end of combat operations in Mosul and other areas formerly held by Islamic State, Iraq has entered another phase of humanitarian crisis. Key challenges for the EU, as one of the main donors in the region, are mostly linked to protection and rehabilitation.
Riji, what are the humanitarian costs of the Mosul conflict?
Well, the level of destruction that is still visible in the western side of the city clearly show the scale of the human cost of the battle. During the battle for Mosul, more than 14,000 civilians got injured, out of which 32% were children under 5. Despite we are at 1 year from the end of the hostility, still is estimated that 4,000 individuals are in need of rehabilitation care.
In a city where the health system is still in ruins, Handicap International and the Italian NGO Emergency work closely together to help victims of war become self-sufficient.
On the 3rd of March 2017, while I was trying to escape, I faced ISIS on the way. They captured me and I thought that if I told them that I wanted to run away, they would kill me. So I said I was there to take some wheat to feed my family. And 10 days later, they cut my hand off.
Adil is receiving his last check at home in West Mosul before being referred to Emergency's Prosthesis Centre in Sulaymaniyah. The physiotherapist checks there's no swelling and that the arm has a wide range of motion. Adil is ready. He will travel to eastern Iraq to receive a new hand, and we will follow him. Immediately out of Mosul, during our 6-hour drive towards Sulaymaniyah, we crossed vast areas heavily impacted by the conflict. ISIS-built trenches and explosive devices can be spotted along the way, as well as IED fields identified by Norwegian People's Aid. The NGO, financed by the EU, is conducting surveys on suspected and confirmed hazardous areas. Nearly 12,000 square metres have been cleared around the village of Badana. According to the NGO, the exact amount of the so-called contamination in Iraq is still unknown and clearance might take decades.
This is a pressure plate. It can be activated by the weight of a child. Since Mosul liberation, nearly 200 people have been killed or injured by the explosion of improvised explosive devices.
This is one of the simplest mechanisms used by ISIS, which became more and more proficient in producing IEDs.
ISIS have developed varying types of IEDs. The ones we have here in the area of Mosul are more complex because they use things such as anti-cut features on the IED, where if you cut it, it will set off the device. They always used a feature known as crushed wire, which is a very thin, very difficult to see piece of wire that has small contacts on them, and when they are depressed, it will set off the device as well.
We started back on our way to Sulaymaniyah, where Emergency opened a rehabilitation centre in 1998. The Italian NGO chose this area because it had been heavily mined during the 1991 Gulf War and 2003 invasion of Iraq. Today, patients arrive from all over Iraq, but even from Syria and Iran. There are some 5,500 patients now. It's here that Adil will receive his prosthetic hand.
The procedure that we took cast for this patient now, we call it taking measurements or making the negative cast for him.
Technicians will then fill this cast with plaster to form a positive mould that will then be used as a base to form a polypropylene hard socket. The different components are chosen in accordance with the need of the patient. Over 60% of them came here with a below-the-knee amputation. Only 3%, like Adil, with an upper limb amputation.
This is the mechanical hand. It has a cable here. We fix the cable to the patient's shoulder. And when he's contracting his shoulder, he's opening the hand.
It's usually the patient who chooses whether to use a mechanical or cosmetic hand. Once the decision's been made, the components will be assembled in the workshop. Each technician produces an average of 3 prostheses a week, depending on the complexity of the case. Adil received his new hand in just 5 hours. As with his home city, Adil's road to recovery has just begun.